Hello hook loopers, welcome to my crochet channel. I'm Sarah. Today's project is ideal for a Tunisian crochet scarf or for a table runner or for a beautiful wall decoration, but it's an open project, meaning that I'm going to guide you through this pattern, giving you all stitches counts and rows counts and showing you how the different Tunisian stitches are made. But you decide how long you want it to be, and you decide what you want to make out of it. For this project, I am using this beautiful mustard yarn, which is 60% wool and 40% acrylic yarn, and calls for a 3.5 millimeters hook. So I am using a long, straight 4 millimeters Tunisian hook. For this, because you always need to go up at least half a hook size when you work in Tunisian crochet. And I'm using a very simple stitch marker for the cables. For this project, I'm using different Tunisian stitches. For most of them, I have already created a separate video tutorial you will find in my Tunisian Stitches collection, except for the Tunisian cables, which I'm showing you today, and I will probably also make a future video tutorial dedicated just to the Tunisian cables. So the stitches I'm going to use are the Tunisian Rib Stitch 1×1, the Tunisian Purl Stitch, second variation, the Tunisian Bobble, and as I said, the Tunisian cable in knit stitch. So let's crochet. So I have started from a standard foundation row for Tunisian crochet of 64 stitches, and then I have created this kind of bottom border, working the first 4 rows in Tunisian rib stitch 1×1. Then I have developed this symmetrical design, which is done like this. So the first 8 stitches are to be worked in Tunisian rib stitch again. So the first loop on the hook already counts as stitch number 1. The next stitch is worked in Tunisian twisted stitch to create the rib stitch, which is done like this. You need to go with the hook under the next vertical bar, but instead of going under it from right to left, you need to enter from left to right, like this, and then twist the hook like this, yarn over, pull through, and drop a loop. Okay, this is 2. Then work into the next stitch in Tunisian simple stitch, then Tunisian twisted stitch, that's 4, simple stitch, twisted stitch, simple stitch, and my 8th stitch, it's a twisted stitch. Now work into the next 10 stitches in Tunisian purl stitch, the second variation I've shown you of the purl stitch. That is to say, you need to go under the vertical bar, the back vertical bar of the next stitch, so not the front bar, but the back bar of that stitch, which is right here. Sorry. Okay, then yarn over, pull through, and drop a loop 10 times. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I have decided to use this variation of the purl stitch because, as you see, it is, in my opinion, even quicker to execute than the standard, the traditional purl stitch. Okay, now it's time for a Tunisian bobble stitch, which is done like this. Yarn over and insert the hook under the next vertical bar. In this case, instead of inserting it as I would normally do for a bobble stitch under the vertical bar, I have chosen to make a small variation and insert my hook under this small vertical bar underneath the main vertical bar, which is created by the purl stitch of previous row below. So I yarn over, pull through, yarn over and pull through 2 loops together, then yarn over again. I'm going to repeat this 3 more times. Insert the hook under the same vertical bar, yarn over, pull through, yarn over again and pull through 2 loops together. Again, yarn over, insert the hook under the vertical bar, yarn over, pull through, yarn over and pull through 2. One last time, yarn over, insert the hook under the same vertical bar, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2. 4 loops on the hook for this stitch. Now yarn over and pull through those 4 loops together, obtaining our bobble stitch. See? Now resume the work in Tunisian purl stitch by working into the next 10 stitches in Tunisian purl stitch. So into the next 9 stitches that was. Now time to make our Tunisian cable. So as you see from the pattern, I have started my cable with this kind of turn, so turning left, the direction of my cable, and then I have turned right here. So now it's time to turn left again, if you understand what I mean. So what I do is this. First of all, my cable is worked in Tunisian knit stitch. So I insert the hook knitwise into the next 4 stitches, like this. So I insert the hook between the front and back bar of my stitches for the knit stitch. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, now I take my stitch marker and I will take my 4 stitches with my stitch marker like this, and then I will slip off my hook from those 4 stitches and let them hang here. Okay, now I skip those stitches and work into the next 4 stitches in Tunisian knit stitch again. So like this. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now what I do is I do this. So I bring my 4 stitches that were left on my stitch marker like this and insert my hook under all 4 of them like this, and then I slip off my stitch marker. I no longer need it. Okay, and that's my cable created. Okay, now for the next panel I will repeat symmetrically what I have done in the first section of my work. So I will work into the next 10 stitches in Tunisian purl stitch. So this is it. 1, 2. And now I will create my next bubble. Just like I've done with the first one, I yarn over, insert the hook under the small vertical bar, under the main vertical bar here, yarn over, pull through, and so on. Okay, and then I will resume working into the next stitches until my border here in Tunisian purl stitch again. And now again into the last 8 stitches in Tunisian rib stitch, just like I've done at the beginning, beginning with a simple stitch, then a twisted stitch. Remember, another way I'm doing the twisted stitches like this. So I insert the hook from right to left under the vertical bar, elongate it a bit, then twist it with my finger and insert the hook again. Okay, this is for me personally easier to do. So 2, now for my last stitch, as I usually do, I end my forward pass with a neat closing stitch. But you can decide to finish with a twisted stitch as well, exceptionally this time. But as I did, I finished with a neat closing stitch, which is done, as you know, by inserting the hook under both the vertical bar on front and on the back of that stitch. At the same time, yarn over, pull through and drop a loop. Now you can proceed with a standard return pass, which is done by yarning over and pulling through 1 loop only first, and then yarn over and pull through 2 loops together until the end of the row and until you're left with just 1 loop on the hook. So actually, I would like to show you what happens when we reach the point where we have made the cable, because this is might be a little bit complicated. You need to pay attention and cast off stitches correctly at this stage. So here we are. I have my twisted stitches here that formed the cable, and I need to make sure that I cast them off in the right sequence. So the first 4 ones are these. I will keep them in place with my finger so as not to make mistakes. So I just need to pay a little bit of attention here. So that's one time, and that's another. Okay. It's just for this one time. You need to be careful. Okay. There you go. Okay, and so on in the standard way until the end of the return pass. Okay, so here I am. This is where my cable is formed and the stitches are twisted. Now I will just tell you how I'm going to proceed, and again I will leave all numbers and details in my description below. So in this case I will start again with 8 stitches worked in rib stitch, and then I will have 20 stitches worked in Tunisian purl stitch with no bubbles in it. And then I have 8 stitches worked in Tunisian knit stitch where my cable is. You need to pay attention, and I will show you how to make them in detail right now. And then I have further 20 stitches worked in Tunisian purl stitch and the last 8 stitches in Tunisian rib stitch. So here I have started my next row working the first 8 stitches in rib stitch and the following 20 stitches in purl stitch. Now, as I anticipated, I am going to work knitwise in my cable here. So it is important to understand that we need to see where our stitches are. So we are not going to work the stitches in front first, but we need to go for the stitches that are on the back of our cable. It could help us if we move with our fingers the texture of our work in order to recognize where we need to insert our hook. So very carefully in the back, these are our 4 stitches, and we need to go into them and work them knitwise. So here they are, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is the last one. And then we can work the stitches that are on front and recognize them. I have 3 here. This is the 4th. Sorry, this is the 4th. So in between the front and back vertical bar of that stitch, 1, this is easier, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and that's our cable done. Okay, next I'm going to work into the next 20 stitches in purl stitch, finishing with 8 stitches in rib stitch, and return. So, and this is my cable twist formed. Okay, so now it's important to notice when do you need to add bobbles in the design. So you need to add them every 3 rows. That is to say, you will keep on working here for a further 2 rows with no bobbles added, so just in plain Tunisian purl stitch, this section of 20 stitches. Then I have my 8 stitches in knit stitch for the cable here with no twisting, then 20 stitches in purl stitch here with no bobbles. After 3 rows, you will need to add 2 bobbles instead of just 1 to create this design here. That is to say, you will work here 5 stitches in purl stitch, then add a bobble, then 8 stitches in purl stitch, then add a bobble, then 5 stitches in purl stitch, and then I have my 8 stitches in knit stitch for the cable. And then I will repeat this symmetrically on the other side of my work, just like I have done here, but symmetrically, okay? Then, when do I twist my cable? I will do this every 6 rows. So basically, like I've shown you, every time it's time to add the single bobble here in the middle, it is also time to twist our cable. So in this case, after 5 rows, I would need to twist my cable, but in the other direction. So like this, towards right and not towards left, like I've just done here. And how do you close your work? You will do so when you decide that the length is enough for you. You've reached the desired length for your project. You will just work a couple of rows with no bobbles added and no cable twisting, of course, working in Tunisian purl stitch and in Tunisian knit stitch here in the middle. And then you will finish with 4 rows worked in Tunisian rib stitch, just like you've begun here, just like you did for the beginning of the project. And you will cast off and bind off stitches with the method you prefer. So the simple standard method or any other method you prefer. As always, I will leave you details for the bind off methods in my description below. So, and this is it for this project. I hope you liked it, and most of all, I hope it was clear enough for you to follow. If not, please leave comments and questions in the comments below, and let me know what you think and if you liked it. So thank you for watching, and see you next time with a beautiful project in Tunisian crochet. Bye bye.